YouTube can throttle us.
They can suppress us.
But they can't stop a text message.
4 Americans are dead, shot down by Cuban forces in international waters, and now President Trump is suggesting something that would make JFK roll over in his grave, a complete takeover of Cuba. Secretary Rubio isn't buying Havana's lies about who fired first, and Trump's response has Washington insiders absolutely losing their minds. So what exactly did the president just propose? Now, it's not just foreign policy, this is your family's security. Cuba's been a communist stronghold 90 miles from Florida for over 60 years, harboring America's enemies and now apparently murdering American citizens in cold blood. If Trump follows through on this, we're talking about the biggest geopolitical shift since the Cold War. Your tax dollars, your military, your sons and daughters could be involved. Meanwhile, the establishment's panicking because Trump just shattered 70 years of failed Cuba policy in one statement. Now, the media won't tell you this, but every American family needs to understand what's really at stake here. Speaking of national security threats, there is something every American needs to know about our uranium supply. This breaking news happened early this year. The U.S. Department of Energy announced $2.7 billion in contracts to restore domestic uranium enrichment capabilities. Now, this isn't just government spending, it's a declaration of intent, because America needs uranium, domestic uranium, and it needs it right now. If you didn't know this, the U.S. consumes 50 million pounds of uranium annually, but we're importing 95% of it from countries that, frankly, don't have our best interests at heart. Russia controls 44% of global uranium enrichment. China is buying up uranium assets worldwide. While we're dealing with Cuba shooting our citizens, we're also dependent on hostile nations for the uranium that powers our nuclear fleet and our defense systems. That's why smart Americans are investing in atomic minerals. They're trading as ATMMF in the USA and ATOM in Canada. They're the company positioning itself at the center of America's uranium renaissance. So do not wait until it's too late, because when push comes to shove, America needs to be energy independent. So make sure you take a look at the exclusive briefing that has been prepared just for you. You'll find it linked below, and we thank Atomic Minerals for supporting our work here. But here's what the mainstream media is not telling you. Trump's friendly takeover comment wasn't really off the cuff. Sources close to the administration say contingency plans have been on the table since day one. And get this, Rubio's investigation isn't just about 4 dead Americans. Intelligence suggests the boat incident might have been a setup. The Cubans might have deliberately provoked this confrontation to test Trump's resolve. If that's true, they just made the biggest miscalculation in Cuban history. Now, let me just tell you, I had this strange feeling. False flag operation. That was like the first thing, something to draw us into a conflict with Cuba. And if Cuba did, in fact, do this to provoke us, and that's exactly what this is. President Trump says a friendly takeover of Cuba is on the menu.
The Cuban government is talking with us. They're in a big deal of trouble, as you know. They have no money, they have no anything right now, but they're talking with us, and maybe we'll have a friendly takeover of Cuba. We could very well end up having a friendly takeover of Cuba.
What about the post?
After many, many years, we've had a lot of years of dealing with Cuba. I've been hearing about Cuba since I'm a little boy, but they're in big trouble, and we could very well, something good, I think very positive for the people that were expelled or worse from Cuba that live here. You know, we have people living here that want to go back to Cuba, and they're very happy with what's going on.
A friendly takeover. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but the bombshell quote is only the beginning. His nostalgic comments about Cuba reveal deeper motivations behind the takeover talk. He said, since I was a little boy, I've been hearing about Cuba and everybody wanting it to change. I could see that happening. But here is the deadly incident. The Cuban government is talking with us. They're in big trouble. They have no money. They have nothing. and we maybe have a friendly takeover of Cuba. The president on his way to Marine One, while Trump talks diplomacy of violent confrontation at sea, is escalating tensions and demanding immediate action. U.S. officials issued a statement stating that the 24-foot boat involved in the deadly clash with Cuba's Coast Guard was stolen in the Florida Keys and did have American citizens on board. The deadly boat clash is not just a tragic accident, it's becoming a catalyst for Trump's most aggressive stance yet. Trump making the statement about the friendly takeover is not just talk. Top officials launching formal investigations into the Cuban aggression. Marco Rubio launching an American-led investigation into the Cuban regime's killing of 4 people on the U.S.-registered boat. Cuba claims the boat was trying to infiltrate the island, but Rubio is not buying it. It's highly unusual to see shootouts in the open sea.
The waters. That's about 1 mile off Cuba's north coast. Now, the speedboat, which is registered to Florida, was carrying 10 armed individuals who, according to preliminary statements from those detained, intended to carry out an infiltration of terrorist purposes. That's according to Cuban Interior Ministry. Secretary of State Rubio says the U.S. needs to confirm these details independently from Cuba.
Suffice it to say, it is highly unusual to see shootouts in open sea like that. It's not something that happens every day. It's something, frankly, that hasn't happened with Cuba in a very long time. But we're going to find out. We're not going to base our conclusions on what they've told us.
And the Associated Press reportedly talked to the brother of one of the men killed on the boat. He said his brother.
So, was it a false flag? The investigation will certainly get to the bottom of it. The investigation is expanding beyond the boat killings to expose Cuba's entire system of exploitation.
The Cuban medical program is that the fact that these people are working, basically it's human trafficking. I mean, they're barely even being paid. Their freedom of movement is tightly restricted. And we want these countries to understand that that's what they're participating in. They're paying this money to the regime, which collects the funds. You know, they get paid for these medical missions. Virtually none of this money goes to these doctors, who are in many cases, you know, we think it's like a version of human trafficking, labor trafficking, and we think it's wrong.
Human trafficking allegations are just a warm-up. Wait until you hear the explosive response to Cuba. Rubio's calling BS.
So this morning, we were made aware by Cuban authorities of an incident off the coast of Cuba. We immediately began to look into it. As it stands now, the Department of Homeland Security, the Coast Guard, others are involved. The majority of the information we still possess is what Cuban authorities are providing both the public and the U.S. government. We have our embassy on the ground in Havana working this as we speak, asking for access to the people that were on those vessels, if they were American citizens or permanent residents. According to the Cuban regime, the boat was registered in Florida. We're tracking that down. We will know shortly, and we will know quickly, many more facts about this incident than we know right now.
So this is only the beginning. Of course, President Trump's remarks, we'll go back to those again because that tells the full story.
The Cuban government is talking with us. They're in a big deal of trouble, as you know. They have no money, they have no anything right now, but they're talking with us, and maybe we'll have a friendly takeover of Cuba. We could very well end up having a friendly takeover of Cuba.
What about the Coast Guard?
After many, many years, we've had a lot of years of dealing with Cuba. I've been hearing about Cuba since I'm a little boy, but they're in big trouble, and we could very well, something good, I think very positive for the people that were expelled or worse from Cuba that live here. You know, we have people living here that want to go back to Cuba, and they're very happy with what's going on.
So here's the bottom line. Trump just called Cuba's bluff on live television because for decades, politicians, they've tiptoed around the communist regime 90 miles from our shore. Not anymore. When Trump says friendly takeover, he's not talking about invasion. He's talking about economic and political pressure. Pressure so intense that the Cuban people themselves will demand the change. That's the art of the deal, Cuban style. This is exactly why we elected Trump, to end failed policies that got Americans killed and enemies emboldened. While career politicians like Biden would have issued a strongly worded letter, Trump is considering action that could free 11 million Cubans from communist oppression. The establishment's terrified because they know that Trump means business, and Cuba just learned what every other adversary has discovered: you don't mess with Americans under Trump's watch. The question is this: do you support Trump's bold approach to finally solve the Cuba problem once and for all? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to check out the Next News merch shop for gear that shows you stand with America First policies.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now.